Got some new fan art. So I got a request from somebody to make a video on how to go to college, because growing up Jehovah's Witness, college was heavily stigmatized at best. So I got to thinking about it, and I realized that there are a few things we were never taught to do as Jehovah's Witnesses that other people do in normal society all the time. So I figured I'd talk about my first time voting, my first time enrolling in college, and my first time celebrating Christmas. Let's get into it. So let's start out by talking about how to go to college. Remember, this is a very basic primer. It's a little more involved than this, but honestly, I think this one's going to be a lot shorter than the Christmas one. Bear in mind, it works a little differently in other countries, but since I live in the US, that's the country I'm going to cover. First of all, you need to get your high school diploma or your GED. You're going to need to get your ACT or your SAT scores, and you might need your birth certificate, ID, or social security card. At this point, if you're just starting out, you almost certainly haven't taken your SAT or your ACT. They're basically just common tests to see where you're placed on a scale, and different colleges require different scores on them. They measure your proficiency in math, science, English, and literature, if I remember correctly. I didn't go to 7th, 8th, 9th, or 12th grade, and I ended up getting my GED and taking the ACT test years after I left school, and I got a 25 on it. I was pretty proud of that, considering how much school I miss. I think an average score is 18, and most colleges require a 16. The scale goes up to 36. That's the ACT though. I don't know how the SAT works. I never took that. It's kind of deprecated in favor of the ACT at this point, at least in my area. Anyways, you can find ACT prep books online to help you prepare for it. You're going to want to Google the nearest ACT official testing location and sign up. I think the test itself costs like $30 or something. They were administering the test at my local university, so I showed up on a Saturday and spent like 6 hours testing. After I got my results, I took them and all the paperwork I mentioned earlier to the financial aid office at the college and asked if they could get me enrolled. You're going to want to go to the financial aid office first because that's what they're most concerned about. Even if you're completely 100% flat broke, you can still get into college. There are some federal and state grants, and I'm not sure which is which or what you have in your area, but the Pell Grant is federal, so everybody below a certain income bracket gets it. It covers $5,000 per year for you to go to college. And tuition for my local college was around $5,200 per year, so the Pell Grant covered it almost completely. But I still had to pay for books, which will run you about another $500 to $600 per year, plus the cost of living while going to college, because it's pretty hard to hold down a job while you go. Part-time job maybe. Full-time job and you're gonna burn yourself out. So your best bet is to try to find scholarships that'll give you additional money to go. If there aren't any scholarships, you can get student loans. The student loans will not only pay what's left of tuition, but they'll usually give you what's called a stipend. So every semester, 2 semesters per year, you'll get a check in the mail from federal student loans. It usually varies between $2,500 and $3,500, and I used to just pay rent and utilities 3 months ahead, so I wouldn't have to worry about it until the next student loan check arrived. So if you can afford to survive without working while you go to school, you don't even need to go into debt usually. Maybe just a little bit, just enough to cover the extra that the Pell Grant doesn't cover. But this is all stuff that the financial aid office will explain to you. I say go with the student loans, whatever it takes to get your degree. I'll take $50,000 in student loan debt to make $200,000 a year any day of the week. You can also get private student loans outside of federal subsidies, but I'd suggest you try to avoid those if you can. Anyways, you don't have to start paying those loans back until you've been completely out of college for 6 months, and you can actually postpone payment for up to a year after that if you need to. They'll usually set you up on a 10-year payment plan or 120 months to repay the loans. Bottom line, all you really need to do is take your ACT and make your way to the financial aid office. They'll explain everything from there. The next thing I wanted to talk about is how to vote. Of course, growing up Jehovah's Witness, we weren't allowed to vote. So how the do you do it? How does it work? Here's the thing. The US government is broken up into a bunch of different districts. The first split is into individual states. Then each state is split up even further. My state, West Virginia, has 3 districts. That's on a federal level. There's also the state level. So the country has a president, senators, and House of Representatives members. And states have governors, which are basically like presidents for individual states. They also have state senators and state house members. Each state is broken up even further, but we'll just go into the federal government for the moment. So every 4 years, on a leap year, the government holds elections. To be allowed to vote in the elections, I had to go to the DMV and sign up for a voter's registration card. It's super easy. You just go there and fill out a little form and they mail it out for you. Then in no time at all, you'll get your voter's card in the mail with your district listed on it. Sometimes you have to look up your district online to find out where your voting location is. Usually voting locations are things like schools or post offices. This is where it might be a little different depending on which state you're in. But in my case, I arrive at the school and I walk in. There's a table set up with 3 people holding big books full of little pieces of paper for every single voter in the district. They look up your name and give you your little piece of paper with your name on it. Then they take you to these machines and you use the stylus to poke your choices for each election. As you pick people on the screen, mine prints out my choice on a piece of paper next to the screen so I can verify that I picked the correct one. There are like 7 pages of people to elect. Judges and commissioners and senators and surveyors, all kinds. Sometimes you get to pick multiple people, like you want to vote for 3 of these 10 people to be judges. Then at the end, sometimes you'll get to vote on a levy, give teachers more money, or fund this or that fire department. When I've made all my choices, there's a big vote button that blinks red, and I have to press it. After I press the vote button, I can't go back. Then the lady gives you an I voted sticker and you walk out the door. That's the end of it. You vote for which candidate you want to run against the other party in the spring. I think it's the second Tuesday in May every 2 years. So if you're registered as a Democrat, sometimes there are 2 or 3 Democrat governors running against each other. So in the spring, you'll vote for which Democrat governor you want to run against the other party in November. After the election, the Democratic Party pours its money into making this candidate win against the Republican Party. So when November rolls around, you'll go back to the voting booths and go through the process all over again. But this time, you'll vote for your party's nominee. You don't have to vote for them. Usually you can write in a name or something, but that's how it works. If you're registered independent, depending on your area, you can specifically request either the Republican or the Democratic voting ticket, and they'll give you a different list of people to vote for depending on which one you chose. If you don't ask, then they'll give you your party's voting ticket. It doesn't work that way in all states. In some states, you just vote for your registered party. And finally, let's talk about Christmas. Even to this day, there are some things about the traditions and practices that I just don't understand. Every year, Christmas gets earlier and earlier, which I love. I wish I could start it in October. And in fact, sometimes I start it in October anyways. Last year, I put my tree up on Halloween night. But typically, people will bitch you out and say you're giving it too much attention if you put the tree up before Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is the 4th Thursday of November every year. After that is Black Friday, which is when all these crazy Christmas deals happen. So it's acceptable to put your Christmas tree up as early as Black Friday. In my area, Walmart sells these pre-lit plastic 6-foot trees for $40. The lights only last a year or 2 max, then you have to get a new tree. So I get this tree and fumble my way through standing it up, and then Alpha Force Zero and I have to go around the tree spreading the branches out. Because they compact it as much as they can to fit it in the box, you have to do what's called fluffing the tree. Then you get some tinsel, which looks like this, and some ornaments, and we hang them up. The hardest part about this is getting them evenly spaced. You're gonna have to step back and take a look a few times to get it right. Try getting a few different colors. Red, green, and silver are my favorites. I think blue looks kinda trashy, but that's just me. You might consider making an ornament with your kid when they're young, or buying a special ornament with their name on it or something. Try getting a special ornament for each person in the family. That's always nice. Then in 20 years, you can pass it on to your kids. We hang stockings by the fireplace and leave them completely empty until Christmas morning, but we'll get to that. On Christmas Eve, December 24th, my family has a little party at Alpha Force Zero's grandma's house, and we invite all the family over for turkey and or ham. Then the adults wrap presents while the little kids play outside, and by about 7 o'clock at night, we play a game that we like to call gag gifts. By the way, everybody has a different name for the exact same game, so tell me what you guys call it in the comments. We usually have like 30 people, so we write numbers 1 to 30 on pieces of paper and we put them in a hat. Then everybody reaches in the hat and picks out a number. Then we start at 30 and we go down the list. Person number 30 picks out a gift from under the tree and they unwrap it. It's some cheap little $3 to $5 thing, like a pair of oven mitts or a toolbox or a fishing pole or something. Then person 29 either gets to take person number 30's gift or they can pick another gift from under the tree. We usually play the game 2 or 3 times depending on how many gifts we have. After that's over, all the kids get to open a single actual present. That one comes from their parents or grandparents. And finally, we'll all hang out for another hour and then we'll go home. That night, after the kids are asleep, and this is very important, they must be asleep. You can bring the presents out and set them under the tree. Those are the presents from Santa. Then you can put candy and cheap $1 toys into the stockings. Stuff to keep them busy if they get up too early. The rule in my house is you can't open presents until 8 a.m. Until then, you can get into the stocking and go nuts. That way I don't get woken up at 3 in the morning or something. Then when the presents are all opened, you go to church. Nah, I'm just kidding. Don't even bother. Anyways, that's all I've got for you. Get out there and vote. Celebrate some holidays and go to college. Live life. Enjoy it. It's the only one you've got. Try to make a difference in the world and make something of yourself. Life can be fantastic. You just have to separate yourself from the poison. Follow me on Patreon, Discord, and all social media. And check out my science channel. I just released a video on there like 2 days ago about hepatitis C. Really interesting stuff. Thanks for watching, guys.